You guys hear me? Alright, good. We have The Walking Dead. We have the ninth episode of Season 8 coming off of the mid-season finale, which is obviously, up to this point, the biggest, best, most epic episode of the entire season and possibly the entire series. I think they did a great job at that. But, yeah, we have after the aftermath. That's kind of why it's called after, because we're going through the aftermath and like what each survivor's doing. You don't get to every single survivor, but you get to some of the more important ones, right? So, following the governor's deadly assault on the prison, the survivors are forced to scatter and try to regroup. So they had to separate, but now they want to regroup and get back together, and that's kind of like the mission. That's kind of like the objective of this episode, is for them to kind of find each other again. Obviously plot convenience, but yeah. Michonne reconnoiters the prison for survivors. She like kind of looks along the perimeter, make sure there's no survivors, make sure she's not leaving anybody behind, and there is none. So she discovers the reanimated head of her friend Herschel and stabs it to put him out of his torment. Obviously, you put him out of their misery when you stab the walkers in the head, because obviously it's pretty much like going to hell. It's pretty much like dying, coming back, and going to hell. But if you shoot them in the head, they kind of get preserved and they don't have to go through hell. Yeah, she's kind of had this close emotional connection to Herschel, so obviously this was hard for her to do, to kill him like that. She discovers a trail of footprints leading away from the prison. Maybe this could be some survivors. She's trying to find any bit of trace possible of survivors. To protect herself, she slices off the arms and jaws of two walkers, leading the pet-like to help mask her presence from other walkers. However, this appears to draw more walkers towards her because they're like smelling the dead. They're like mobbing. And like, oh, I guess they have like this mentality the walkers do. Oh, they might be going towards food. Let's follow them, It's like this mob mentality. And you don't even really know the like mental state or anything about that. I don't even know if they don't have brains, I don't think. Yeah, kind of like what she did to those walkers at the beginning. I think they were her brothers. We never really realized this, but yeah. While taking shelter in a car overnight, she dreams of her young son, her boyfriend Mike, who is just now getting introduced in the series in a flashback. He is played by Aldous Hodge, and his friend Terry, played by Brandon Fobbs. Before the apocalypse, but the dream turns into a nightmare when Mike and Terry appear like her walker pets. So maybe then we figure out who her walker pets were this whole time. Her boyfriend and his friend. Yeah, we kind of get a glimpse into her past for like the first time the whole series. That was a really good touch, actually. She continues onward, but on observing a walker that looks similar to herself, suddenly comes the realization after her mindless walking is for naught. She slaughters the walkers that surround her and her pets, and vows to Mike that she now has a purpose in life. She's finally found her purpose, to survive, I guess. I'm not really sure. She kind of like breaks down. She sets off to follow the trail of footprints. She has like an emotional breakdown. Everything's kind of crumbling. She's losing so many loved ones, and now she's starting to think there's like no hope, So, yeah. Did I put my name on my test? I fucking hope I did on my physics test. Jesus Christ, if I didn't, that'd be the dumbest shit ever. For fuck's sake. Meanwhile, I'm thinking about that in my head. Meanwhile, Carl and Rick, whose footprints Michonne is following, work their way from the prison, Rick slowing them down due to the injuries he got from the attack. And I'm not really a big fan on how Carl kind of handled this. I'm not a big fan of him as a character right now. It is what it is. They stop at a diner to find food. A lone walker is barricaded behind furniture, and Rick wants to kill it using an axe, but it's too weak, forcing Carl to kill it with his gun. So Carl kind of has to be the man of the house, the father of the house now. He's got to help his aging father and kind of fight through these zombies himself almost. Later, Carl helps his father into an abandoned house, and Rick falls unconscious because of probably some exhaustion. I think he punctured his lung. He's really wheezy. Yeah. Carl shouts at him to try and revive him, attracting nearby walkers. Of course, Carl does this stupid thing. He lets out his emotions while his father's unconscious. Would never say this to his father face to face. Now, I don't know what kind of psychopath would say these obscenities towards your father to their face, but yeah. Carl is able to dispatch them, and when he returns, yells at a still unconscious Rick. blaming him for abandoning his leadership role, hurting himself, his mother Lori, his newborn sibling Judith, and the others of his group at the prison. So he just lets it out. He just confesses his feelings, and his father doesn't even hear any of it. So, obviously there's no turmoil there because his father has no idea what the fuck's going on. He's unconscious. Maybe like a mini coma. I'm not sure what happened. I think he's just exhausted. Later, Carl goes to search for supplies in a nearby house, so he's trying to get supplies like his father would want him to do, probably. He nearly is bitten by a walker trapped behind one door, but is able to escape when the walker pulls off his boot. I mean, you think you can do this yourself. Like, I don't need you, yet you're struggling with one walker. I don't know. He recovers additional food and supplies and returns to the house where Rick is. So, he finds this chocolate pudding. He's eating it, kind of being happy, feeling kind of free of the world. Being returning to his childhood, his naivete. He sees Rick crawling towards him and moaning, and fearing his father has become a walker, turns his gun on him. He's about to shoot his father, who is still alive, but he has raspy breathing because of his lung problem. Rick calls out Carl's name, proving he is still alive, he is still with them, he can still continue the journey. Rick sees what Carl has done to protect and sustain them, and apologizes for his behavior, and believes Carl is now a man. You're an adult now. I'm sorry I underestimated you, these sort of things. Michonne eventually catches up to the pair, and after observing through a window that they are alive and well, begins to cry tears of joy. She can't believe it. She's finally found her salvation. She's finally found the people that she was torn away from, the days before. As Rick and Carl bond over a meal, there is a knock at the door. Rick goes to look through the peephole, and on seeing Michonne, laughs and tells Carl, "It's for you." I wasn't really sure how to interpret the ending of that. That was really confusing. But we're going to go to the reception. Quite a bit to say about this episode. Moderate reviews. The episode's focused on the secondary characters. That's awesome. The series' shift in the environment and the episode's pace was kind of weird, kind of goofy. Phew. That was quite an episode. Although we didn't get to see what's happened with the rest of the group, we learned more about Michonne than ever, and finally got to see Carl become a man. Instead of a traditional rite of passage like a bar mitzvah or a co-head birthday party, Carl got to kill zombies and eat copious amounts of pudding. Welcome to adulthood, Carl. 8.5 out of 10 on IGN. The Walking Dead opened the second half of Season 4 with a restrained but effective episode that saw its characters faced with the challenge of accepting and even embracing the reality of the lives they're living, even the horror. The show shift to the from the previous episode was weird. Instead of kicking off the second half of Season 4 with the bang, The Walking Dead took a sizable risk with its mid-season premiere as showrunner Scott Gimple focused more on character development than on the gruesome, over-the-top zombie killing that we've come to appreciate in AMC's hit series. The beginning scene at the prison was cool. By kicking off the episode with various shots of the zombie-infested prison, a quick look at the governor's body, and an emotionally charged scene that saw Michonne drive her katana through Herschel's severed, zombified head. After his pre-credit scene served as a satisfying end to the show's prison saga and gave the episode a tone more akin to a traditional season premiere. The Carl and Michonne's roles in the episode were great. If there's one thing that The Walking Dead has proven time and time again, it's that superficial supporting roles can be transformed into multifaceted, essential characters. And last night's... this was a review from at the time. This episode was at its best when it gave Carl the opportunity to escape Rick's shadow and gave us an insight into her... talking about Michonne's past, along with a better understanding of the events that shaped her post-apocalyptic persona. Not every review is positive. Some people, obviously the character development was great. Some people say the episode gets huge mileage out of small character moments and goes a long way to make Carl an interesting character for the first time. That's good. The episode's beginning was criticized. The episode seemed too intent on attempting to jolt viewers by killing off beloved characters such as this saintly Herschel. Many seemed to love it, but some people felt the escalating body count was providing diminishing returns. The change in environment was seen positive by some people. Now The Walking Dead can return to the enjoyable, for the audience anyway, world outside those barbed wire fences, a world where our survivors can't just garden all day and then safely tuck themselves into bed behind 6-foot thick concrete walls. Now they'll have zombies nipping at their heels as they try to make it to another sunrise, hoping they'll live long enough to have one more argument over whether or not Rick is a good leader. The episode's pace was weird. Large stretches of after were indeed boring. Some people wanted to like the episode a lot more than they did because they think it was making an effort to both deliver a message and reintroduce us to the danger of this world by showing us how it can break even the sturdiest survivors. Otherwise, it was just characters walking around and killing zombies, and even that's starting to get old, of course. I don't really have much to say. I can't wait to watch the next episode, how, Michonne meeting back up with them is going to affect some things. But that's going to do it. I have 2 more videos for the day. There's only 2 NBA games tonight, so expect that video tonight to be really, really short. Oh man, I can't wait till Drake and 21 Savage drop their album. I will be listening to that tomorrow morning, probably at around 10:30, and listening to that and then heading to